system of the Shah's enemies changed his last sentence to imply that it referred to all Iranians. Join the Rastakhis, or take your passport and leave. The media in Iran, state-owned radio, and television networks failed to clear the air of this disinformation. Western media also contributed to the twist of facts. Meanwhile, no one was asked to leave the country. According to a veteran journalist of that time, the idea of establishing the Rastakhis party was the only solution. The Shah's only viable alternative in a country where the majority ruling party had never tolerated the minority and never given it a chance to succeed. In spite of several attempts by the Shah to make the dysfunctional two-party system work, the Shah was frustrated with a majority that would never allow the minority the right to effectively exist. The ruling Iran Novin party had, in fact, monopolized all the political and economic power. So the Shah had come to the conclusion that the only way to make the dysfunctional party system work was to create a shelter for the minority within the majority itself.
فرقی نداشت بین حزب مردم و حزب ایران نوین نسبت به شاه. منتها حزب ایران نوین مثل بختک واقعا افتاده روی بم کرد.
The plan was to create a system that would correct itself from within. This was misrepresented and misreported by the Western media and by the Shah's enemies as an act of dictatorship by the Shah to solidify his power, as if to say his power was not solidified already. The U.S. Embassy in Tehran at the time also took the false version and reported it back to Washington. The cable read, "All Iranians of voting age are expected to express allegiance to new party or risk being viewed as opponents of Shah, and even traitors, who should leave Iran or go to prison." Was it that hard for the U.S. Embassy to get the correct translation text of what the Shah said?
اگه واقعا من با هر کسی جای شاه باشه چند بار حرکت کرده که واقعا دو تا حزبی که با قول معروف فرق هم نداشتن، گفت حزب ایران نوین پاینده باد، یک کمی هم حزب مردم زنده باد. حالا در حد یک کمی هم اجازه نمیدادن. یه جور خب دیگه آسی شد به نظر من شاه. و چون اینی که میگن تک حزبی اوج دیکتاتوری شاه بود، مگر حزب مردم و حزب ایران نوین از نظر بسیار حالا باورایی که داشتن فرقی داشت با هم نسبت به شاه. همه میگفتن منویات ملوکانه، برای شاه فرقی نداشت که حالا دو تا حزب باشه. اون حزب اقلیت در برابر شاه که نبود، یعنی در اقلیت هم گذاشته بودنش. اقلیت یا منتقد دولت بود نه منتقد شاه. دلیلی نداشت که مثلا بخواه شاه همش کاری بکنه. خود دو تا چیز بود را و این حالت دو حزبی هم بگم تو ذهن شاه هم بود برای حتی موقع رستاخیز، وقتی که به همون علتی که گفتم حزب ربایی 5-6 ماه سالی گذشت گفت آقا در حزب رستاخیز هم دو جناح تشکیل بشه.
Mohammad Reza Shah had observed political stalemates in the democratic systems of the West from time to time, but he knew they could afford to waste time. However, for a country like his, which was about to accelerate and distance itself from those third world countries condemned to poverty and misery, there was simply no time to waste with selfish, petty rivalries in the ongoing political power game. In spite of all the negative accounts by the not-so-impartial historians, the introduction of the Rastakhis party to replace the dysfunctional and theatrical existing party system was welcomed by the overwhelming majority of Iranian people as a breath of fresh air. They did not see the action as an iron fist imposing a dictatorship similar to that in communist countries. The Rastakhis party indeed paved the way for an open dialogue in social, economic, and political solutions. rather than mere political gamesmanship among power seekers. Had it been given a chance to work, the system could have served as a model suitable for many countries that have reached an impasse because of old political rivalries or insatiable greed for power. The beginning of the end for the Shah and for Iran came when Jafar Sharif Emami, a Grand Master of Freemasonry, was unexpectedly and without explanation appointed Prime Minister to replace Jamshid al-Muzaffar. As part of his very first destructive, close to sabotage action, he dismantled the Rastakhis party in September of 1978, as to admit that all the criticism and disinformation from the Shah's enemies was true. Those who were adamantly supporting the system and defending it against ever-growing opposition were left speechless. People felt betrayed, frustrated, confused, and angry. A historically irreversible mistake committed by a suspicious political figure encouraged enemies from within and without to push the ignition button of devolution. It was a moment that Khomeini perhaps had not dreamed of, but he used it to his advantage without hesitation. From that moment on, the scattered and localized riots of the so-called Black and Red Alliance officially turned into the devolution of a nation. To this day, no one can explain what forces made the Shah, during the most critical moment in Iran's history, appoint Sharif Emami against the reasoning of all his close advisors. General Nasser Mohaddam, the head of SAVAK, Iran's national intelligence and security organization, on the eve of August 25, 1978, tried desperately to change the Shah's mind. He even pleaded to the Queen to use her influence. He said that the appointment of Sharif Emami would have a catastrophic effect on the country, and that without a doubt, the whole system would collapse. The Shah did not change his decision, but on many occasions in exile, he regretted it. Why did the Shah appoint a person as unpopular as Sharif Emami to direct the country in such a critical and demanding time? All that was known was that the 70-year-old Jafar Sharif Emami was a Grand Master of Freemasonry and had close ties with the British for many years. On September 20th, 1979, while in exile, the Shah abruptly told Dr. Hushang Nahavandi, a popular and natural choice to replace Jamshid al-Muzaffar as Prime Minister at the time, "Had I appointed you then as Prime Minister, they would have killed you." He did not explain who they were. The identity of they was never revealed, but even as unknown as they seemed to be, perhaps it can explain why the Shah exhibited indecisiveness and made unwise decisions during his last few months of 1978. Before that, he had always outsmarted his opponents decisively.
ولی از نظر کلی که این بند یه دفعه باز شده بود از چیز، اون طلیعه اول رستاخیز من میدونم که با یه حالت امید شروع شد.
For those who question Mohammad Reza Shah's decision to leave Iran. As Reza Shah walked toward a building in Isfahan on his way to forced exile in Africa, his daughter, Princess Ashraf, describes that she saw an old man walking with two companions.
As they drew closer, I was stunned to realize that this old man in civilian clothes was my father. In less than a month, he seemed to have aged 20 years. In my whole life, I never had seen Reza Shah in anything but a military uniform. And I have never known him to be anything other than a proud and vigorous man. His work had been the activating force of his life. And now, he was certainly a man without purpose, sent to join the realm of old men whose usefulness had ended. At my brother's wedding, he had expressed the wish to have 10 more years to finish the programs he had started. But he was not to have that wish.
Mohammad Reza Shah took the oath in Majlis on September 16, 1941.